Hey everybody, my name's Adam Brous,
I'm Scott Maupin.
and this is Solutions from the Multiverse, where we bring you a new solution every week to your happy earballs.
So thanks for joining us, and come by each Tuesday morning. We'll have a new episode ready for you. Here we go.
Should we get started? Should we just launch right in?
Yeah. What do you got for us today?
Okay. I have for us. Well, let me preface it this way, because it's a little bit like, we're gonna talk about feminism, and so like men commenting on feminism. Let me just preface that I recently had a daughter.
Okay.
And
congratulations.
Thank you. And she's doing fine. And you also have a daughter. Yep. But we're both like dads of daughters. And I got concerned about like my daughter's life in America, that what would her, status be as, in terms of equal rights and in terms of, equity, in terms of economics and stuff. Okay. And I was a little bit interested and concerned about that. And so I started to read a bunch of books about, traditional feminism, the history of feminism, the advancement of women's liberation, and then also sort of recent, patriarchy, third wave, fourth wave feminism books. I read probably 5 books on this stuff, including the 2 main books on the patriarchy. One called The Creation of the Patriarchy, which was in like the 80s and then the 90s, and then one very recent book called The Patriarchy Still Exists or something like that. And I read those both, and quite interesting, illuminating. And by reading all that, I came up with a solution, not for feminism, but to help the advancement of the liberation of women, which I'm always been in favor of, but I'm especially committed to now that I have a wife. I've had a wife for a few years, but a daughter who will be growing up. So yeah, so the solution is, it's kind of a 2-parter, but they're correlated together. One part of the solution is feminism moves forward, the advancement of women progress, it seems to me, from reading these histories, when they ally themselves and act like a labor movement.
Okay.
So that's one thing. So we're going to talk about that. And then the other thing is, we measure feminism wrong. We talk about it in the wrong way in the academy and in general. Everyone talks about it in terms of waves of feminism: first wave feminism, second wave feminism, third wave feminism, fourth wave, right? And I think that's the wrong way to talk about it. And instead, I've constructed a 5-tier way of talking about it.
Okay.
And I think that's a more accurate way. And what's interesting is America is only at about tier 3, but other countries are at tier 5.
5 is good. You want to be up.
The best. 5 is like total equity, total equality. Women are safe and protected.
DEFCON 4, DEFCON 3.
Right. It's like it's like Mach 4, Mach 3, Mach 2.
Okay.
It's like a level. So you can use that. It's kind of like, or the civilization levels, like, Dyson sphere, right? You can have like civilization level 1, 2. This is like that, but for women's liberation. So I want to propose this as a solution, because I think it would, if we reframe, we need women's liberation to get out of the doldrums. Like it's been sort of in the doldrums for about 30 years. We haven't really seen much progress. And actually we've seen steps backwards with the overturning of Roe v. Wade and a number of other things. It's actually really important, not just for women, but for men who believe in equity and justice, for actually the women's movement to actually stop being in the doldrums and stop falling back and actually advance. And so that's why it's a solution, is like, I think this is how we could do it. Obviously, maybe I'm not the best messenger, I don't know, but I think it's important for people who care to share ideas. And so I'll share this idea.
Yeah, well, let's dig in on it. I love it. That's fine.
Okay.
I think, yeah. So are you going to teach me? You're going to teach me this 5?
Let me tell you the tiers, and then that will explain the other part, which is like the why it needs to act like a labor movement and not like an advocacy organization. And we'll talk about mangoes.
And do the
we got to talk about mangoes, because feminism has been taken over by mangoes.
Do your 5? I was going to say, do your 5 tiers form some sort of a a good acronym? Is that what we're
Oh
getting
God, I
to?
wish they did. No, they don't. Wait, PINVEF.
PINVEF. PINVEF.
PIMVEF.
Well, we'll work on it. We'll
PIMVEF.
see what
Maybe
we
we
can do.
can get it. Okay. Okay. So in the this follows the history. So it's not like it's not a ranking of values, like which, maybe the fifth phase actually might be the most important morally, but in history, it's gone through these five phases. And so and it's also kind of repealed back from those phases too. So in a way, there's
Okay.
some kind of way that okay. So the first phase is property. Women gain the right to have property.
Okay.
Makes sense, right? Just to own property.
Yeah. Because there was a
This,
time when it was like, that's not, you have to
right.
be
No
married to
property at all,
you are
right?
actually, you are property of your husband.
Right,
So
right. And the
you're not able
way
to
that
have
women,
property.
though, and each tier has strategies that worked to gain that tier. So if you go back in history, women gained the right of property by petitioning men.
Hmm.
They just petition women and men like us who are allied with women,
Right.
wrote their names on petitions to give women the right to have property. They submitted those signed papers to governmental bodies made up entirely of men who only were voted in by men to say you should give women property, the right to own property themselves. And that alone, without any kind of action outside of signing petitions, got women the right to property. So that's pretty good. There was no need for like a war. There was no need for like, I don't know, there was no strikes, no boycotts, no
Right.
direct action, no breaking windows, no ethical sabotage, right? No,
A demonstration
just,
of public will in like
and
a
not even and not
peaceful.
even a protest, not even
Yeah.
protest, street protest. Just sign our
Just
petition,
here,
turn it
look.
in. Please give us this. And the men looked at it and said, there are a lot of problems if women don't have property. It causes all kinds of problems and it's not good. And women can have property. Okay, let's give them property. So, first tier, property, petition. Second tier, independence from husband, also petition, only took petition. So, women said, women should be able to not be married and not be like a pariah just for
Right.
not being married. They should be able to
Right.
own, when their husband dies, they should be able to inherit the husband's property. It shouldn't go to like the husband's brother and then the woman gets attached to their family or gets left out in the cold, right?
Mm.
Women should be able to be independent of their husbands. So that was the second tier, and that's petition as well. Okay.
Okay.
Then we get to
Petition's doing pretty good so far on the scorecard.
that was the interesting thing from reading these histories is everyone acted like, women were, like there was a patriarchy, right? Where the men were like not willing to like give away the power, but actually women just asked and then they just got it. So that's good.
The guys were like, "Oh,
The third,
you wanted to have Oh, okay, here you go."
yeah,
We
basically,
didn't
I
know.
mean, enough people had to sort of say, and some men had to ally with the women and say, yeah, like give the women property,
Like, this is ridiculous.
Um, yeah, it's not. First of all, it doesn't work very well, and also they deserve it. Like they ought to have it, just for being people. Okay, the third phase or tier is voting, political ability to have a political voice. That one took petition primarily, but then also protest. So we all know the suffragettes did protests. They even did ethical sabotage. They would break windows. They would create ruckuses. They would be not violent, but they would create a ruckus and
Yeah.
damage even to property. So it required protest to do that. And that is what got women the vote in 18, let's see here, in the United States. Let's see here. It's wow, the internet is like trying to cover it over and not allow it to say what it is. This is bizarre. It's late in the 1800s or early 1900s. Anyways, they fought for it for like 100 years. Although they didn't fight for it very well. Like for example, one thing that I learned from these histories of feminism and women's rights and liberation was that women actually, the women's rights movement started to support the anti-slavery movement very strongly in like the 30s and 40s, all the way up then into the Civil War.
Makes
And
sense.
yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't, right? Because what happened, well, here's the thing. When the Civil War ended and they had liberation and they had the 14th Amendment, which stopped slavery, but it
Yeah.
only enfranchised men, the male slaves. and they didn't get the right to vote for another 40 years.
No.
And the women's rights movement people were really mad when that happened. They felt like they got totally screwed over
Right. Sure.
because they fought what they felt like shoulder to shoulder with, the black slaves to
Like we
eliminate
have
and
the
the
same
abolitionists.
struggle. We are
And
groups of disenfranchised
yeah,
people.
and then and then they were like, nope, just the men get. So that was bad. That was bad. That was a mistake. I mean, in a way, I mean, it's not bad that it's good they removed slavery. It's maybe the women helping is good that the women were in support of that, the women's right people. But it's kind of interesting that the women's right people, it wasn't really strategic to achieve their aims, maybe, um, because they got screwed over. But anyways, it takes petition and in the past it takes protest to get the right to vote. Okay.
Okay.
But again, not major. I mean, the suffragettes were pretty major protest, but not a civil war. It took a civil war to get rid of slavery. Didn't take a civil war to get women's rights. Which this is where the kind of the story of the patriarchy kind of gets me a little bit. I think it's a bit of a misnomer because if it's truly a patriarchy, it would take a civil war to take back that political power. I think, and it just didn't. It's just protest and petition.
One thing that strikes me as pretty different between those two struggles is the amount of like economics tied into the slavery, that's not into, the amount of
Yeah.
money that people lose immediately from slavery becoming illegal versus they're like, oh,
Women just gaining the right to vote.
right.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, sure. There's an economic aspect to that too. But women gaining the right to vote, I mean, it's a power aspect. The
Very much
power,
so.
like imagine, women like today, women vote like I think somewhat majority Democrat. So like if women didn't have the right to vote, and you went and said, let's try to get the right to vote,
It
people
changes the
who
dynamics.
Republicans would block it. They would be like, no, because they don't want to, right? They're gerrymandering racially. Why don't they would have the same, right? They would have the same. So, I mean, back then it was the same thing. Like the men in power who thought, man, women aren't going to vote for me. They would have tried to block the women's right to vote,
Right.
but it still went through. So that's pretty interesting. Like that went through. It took a long time. I mean, 1776 all the way to 1906, I think is what it came up with here. Okay, then the fourth level is equal rights. So this is equal, like you're literally men and women are like totally equal. And America does not have this yet. Famously, what's called the Equal Rights Amendment.
Wait, it does not have equal. There is the equal.
There
rights
is not
amendment,
equal rights between women and men. The Equal Rights Amendment has never been ratified.
Oh.
So it was passed by Congress in 1972. Oh, it has met the 38 state ratification threshold in 2020, but it today
Just
faces
then?
legal
What?
challenge. Yeah, and it faces legal challenges regarding a lapsed deadline, leaving its official statute as the 20th Amendment disputed despite advocacy for its adoption. So Virginia in 2020 was the 38th state to ratify the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, and meeting the 3/4 of the state's requirement for a constitutional amendment. But now it's been challenged, and it has not published the ERA, and lawsuits are ongoing.
What is the basis of people? I don't understand what people are mad about, I guess.
So the Equal Rights Amendment. So America has not achieved level 4 feminism. And there's another level over that after that.
Okay, so what's level 5? What's the
level
ultimate?
5 is full equity.
The S class.
Okay, full equity. And that means that, women are not the same as men. They, of course, because they carry children, they're a different organism than men are.
Right.
They and men are different in their own way too, but both genders, both sexes require being treated in a way that gives them maximum freedom and maximum protections, so that they're fully free.
Yeah.
And so, for example, things like universal childcare and Scotland and some other countries have free feminine products, so that economics doesn't block women from just living with having periods every month, right?
Right. Tax,
for example,
what they call it, the pink tax. I think I've heard it called.
Right.
Before.
Oh yeah, sure. Pink tax, and then equal pay, which although equal pay would already be covered by the equal rights, so just the ERA would block the equal pay, I think.
Okay.
Anyways, but anyways, there's not exact. That's why it's tiers. It's not totally black and white, but full equity would mean like women have, reproductive, obviously, control of their bodies reproductively, and they have access to the things that they need as women to just operate as women and be part of society without there being like barriers to them that way.
Okay.
So America has not achieved four, and it's very, very partially achieved some of five. And so it has a long way to go. And it basically hasn't made much progress since the 80s. And that's because four and five move on from petition and protest and require striking, boycotting, and voting.
Ah.
So you have to use the power of vote that you got in tier three to achieve tier four and five. But you also, in history, it shows, and in the countries where they have achieved levels four and five, like Iceland, Norway, Sweden, very, very uh, uh, full equity women countries. The difference between those countries and our country is just that their labor movement didn't stop in the 80s. It just kept going. And the women's movement came along with it and was aligned with it and moved with it and in favor of it. Whereas in America, the labor movement got destroyed by the Reagan era regulations and kind of cultural stuff, but also
Right.
feminism and the women's life movement abandoned the labor movement and went into the mangoes. This is where the mangoes come in. So
Okay.
mangoes are media, academics, and NGOs. So feminism is largely moved forward today by people in the media. You could
Okay.
imagine,
I know what that is.
media
That makes
people,
sense.
journalists, and musician,
Right.
and then academics, which is a
Academics
huge
are
part of feminism. Feminist women's,
are
women's
you
studies
are
things,
you in
and
the academics? Are you part of the A of mangoes? Or you're in
I am part
academia,
of the.
right?
I'm an M. I'm an M. I'm the man. Or we're media. We're so
We are
podcast.
media, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I am unfortunately part of the academics, but I'm aligned with labor though. I'm a labor advocate, so I try to not I try to lean
To
in
not
with
act
labor.
like
Yeah, I don't
okay.
want to be an academic.
So then
And then the NGOs is just like
yeah, what are the
advocacy organizations. An
okay,
NGO is just like, you can think of
non-government.
any, women's organization. Oh, it's this is this woman or that woman organization. And
Okay.
unfortunately, the mangoes don't lead to progress. They just kind of move the pieces around without actually making progress. Because the media just kind of endlessly debates things. Academics just kind of endlessly debate things. And NGOs actually are funded to fight. If they succeed, they lose all their funding. And so they want to make superficial progress, but they're
But
not
they
actually
still need a
incentivized to make full
struggle.
progress, right? Whereas
Yeah.
labor unions are incentivized to get all of their demands. They're incentivized to get universal child care, universal health care, universal access to, time off, parental leave,
Interesting.
paid parental leave, right? So labor
Right.
unions and the labor movement are incentivized to go all the way to full equity. And then also they use the strike and the boycott as well as the vote. So labor unions organize their members and the public to vote for certain ways. They also
Uh-huh.
organize their members and the public to boycott and to strike. And so the women's movement in other countries, which used the vote petition, you have to continue to use petition, you have to
Sure.
continue to use protest, but you have
Yeah.
to add on to that voting and then also labor striking and boycotting. If you don't do that, then historically, no country that has been able to do that has been able to get greater women's equality and then women's full equity.
So if I'm
Um,
thinking about it like it's a car, because I know you love cars, so this car
oh, I
analogy
love
should
them.
be
I
very
love
good.
them.
But it
Yeah.
like voting is sort of like the steering wheel that I'm turning it, and then the striking and boycotting
Yeah.
becomes
The
sort of
gas or
affecting the
something.
gas pedal. Yeah,
Yes.
you're like you
Yes.
don't have
Right.
any money, like, and they're like, okay,
Right.
we like the gas to keep coming. What do we need to do? And they're like, you need to listen to us when it comes time to turn the steering wheel. And then it's like, this
Right.
now we've
Right.
got progress.
Exactly. Yeah. And, whether you're voting for men, women, it doesn't matter. But as long as you're voting for people who say, I will support women, I'll get childcare, I'll get women, maternal or even just parental paid leave,
Right.
I'll get women's right to choose, all these things that are full equity, and I'll demand that the Equal Rights Amendment is passed and made into a constitutional amendment. You know, the vote, you have to vote people in to do
I
that,
will tell
men or
some
women.
people that it's not already a thing because at least one person in this conversation thought it was a thing already.
It's not. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
really messed up. When I learned that, I just like went through the roof, especially as a father of a daughter. And I just care about people in general. The idea that 50% of people would not have equal rights is completely bananas.
yeah.
So anyways, so yeah, this is kind of the idea. I think it's really important for us as a united sort of liberation of humanity front to help and be like, hey, women's movement, we got to like get back on tracks and be making progress because there's such an important flank of the whole movement of liberation.
Hmm.
And if they aren't on track, then we all kind of flag, you know, because yeah.
So is the idea to like more activate the mangoes and make them more useful,
No, we
or
got
is
to
it
get the
to
mangoes out
get
of there.
a different
We got to
leg
get
of
the mangoes out of there. I mean,
activism?
the mangoes can hang around and be there, but they need to stop being the leaders of
Yeah,
of the movement. And they need people who are rank and file, like just people in the street, like normal people, have to stop thinking, "Oh, success.
it's
We have
already
a
done.
funded NGO," or "Oh, success. We have a member of the media is a woman's advocate." No,
Mm.
none of that is success. Those are just performative. They might be able to become like loudspeakers for
Yeah,
petition, protest, voting, strike, boycott. But if they aren't, if they're just like discussing things or being outraged every day for one thing or another, then it's a waste. It's
it's
not
like
going to
wall
lead to yeah.
decorations, not actual.
The best example here is Me Too. It was the appearance. It gave the appearance of some sort of success or struggle, you know, the struggle towards women's
Sure,
liberation and
people talk. They're like, now that it's post Me
right,
Too era, and I'm
post
like,
Me Too era,
you
right.
know, but it
But the
doesn't.
reality is no laws changed. The ERA is not passed. There
Very
is
few
not
people went
parental and
to
maternal leave.
right.
There is no, you know, the women who ran for president lost both of them against a total narcissistic psychopath. So there really wasn't. I mean, you people will point out there are some improvements. Okay, I'm sure there's some things that happened. It's a thing that happened. I'm sure there's some consequences to it that were
Yeah.
positive. But the reality is the big emotions have not moved forward. And that's because it wasn't accompanied by, in my opinion, voting really driving the vote with it. They didn't really convert Me Too into an electoral thing.
Right.
They kept it in this sort of business, women in business in leadership, you know, how many women are on the board, how many CEOs or something. And
Well,
that just doesn't advance, you know, regular women's lives. And then
and
they absolutely didn't turn it into any kind of strike or boycott, which they totally could have, because it is a kind of working world thing. They could have said, oh, well, we're boycotting these 10 companies that have
mhm.
terrible women, you know, relationships. And we're, you know, like Uber at the time, now it's sort of better, but Uber at the time had these terrible relations with women. Why didn't the Me Too movement call for a boycott of Uber? They didn't. Same thing with strike. They didn't call for like women to all walk off the workplace until the ERA is passed. They could have done that. Like there were leaders of the Me Too movement who had millions of Twitter followers who were doing it, who could have said, let's turn this into, and then I think it would have had more of a consequence. Well, at least history suggests that it would have been
I
more successful.
I think I might have heard a little bit of a stink about the Uber thing because of the CEO being, you know, one of
Oh
these
yeah,
people caught
he
up.
was awful.
But
Yeah,
now that I'm thinking about
yeah.
the whole Me Too thing, a lot of it was
Travis.
contextualized. A lot of it was contextualized in like taking down specific men, being like, oh,
Right,
we
right.
have
It was a
dirt on
hit. It
this.
was a
It's
hit
this
on his
person,
name. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
this
yeah,
person. Some
yeah.
of whom who were only temporarily stopped and are now doing
Right.
just fine, but
And
some
also
of
some
whom
of it, yeah.
but
Oh
it
yeah,
was
we're
like
horrible. And it was good you
it's
took them out.
contextualized
Yeah.
around men, and it's not around like you're saying. The end result of that is like ping,
Right,
ping,
right.
ping. We shot a few people out of the sky, but we didn't lift up the floor of the problem
Right. Oh,
that's
that's such a good
causing
way to
this
describe it.
thing
Yeah, yeah,
anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
And that's exciting. And NGOs can get involved, and the media can have a feeding frenzy, and academics can write a bunch of papers and books
uh,
about Me Too and the Me Too era and blah, 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 blah. And
sexy
they can write about,
headlines.
you know, yeah, and they
Yeah,
can write like postmodern feminist critiques of Me Too and blah, blah, blah. but it
Look, the
doesn't
movie industry is
actually.
better. We have Harvey Weinstein not making movies now. It's
That's
all
good.
fixed.
No, so
100.
there is
But yeah,
progress. I mean, those monster predator guys
well,
should
but just
get
one guy
totally
is like, and then they're
nailed,
like, "Good job done. Wash our hands.
Right,
We're done." And it's
right.
like,
And
no,
we
no, no,
could
no.
it could have been turned into something so much
Yeah,
stronger
right.
if it had said if they had said, okay, now we're gonna. I don't know
Tie
what the
it
targets would
to,
have been because I wasn't, but you choose some targets that are
but
strategic. You
use,
say,
like you're
you
saying,
know,
use labor principles. Use,
yeah, yeah.
tie
The
it to
strike, the
striking. Yep.
boycott, and voting. I mean, they didn't even turn it into a voting thing. I mean, there
No.
was the Women's March, which I'm sure people were like registering people to vote. And clearly there was a kind of Trump is bad, women don't, like, but something like 50% of women voted for Trump. So they clearly didn't actually make many inroads
Yeah.
into all women. Like they just sort of were like, well, we as the leftist women don't like Trump, but in action to actually have a electoral success, you actually kind of have to put your own sort of allegiances aside and be like, how can I meet
Mhm.
other people where they're at and get them onto my side? And there wasn't that. It was more like just a kind of tete-a-tete.
Yeah, because
Um,
that's my
so
question. Sort of when I see these no kings marches, I'm like, they're like,
yeah,
look,
totally useless.
millions of
Yeah.
people. I'm like, and they're like, I'm like, okay,
Doing
but
what?
what is
Yeah. Yeah.
what's the change?
What's
You
the
know, and they're like,
demand? What's the
it's bigger than the
change?
last one. I'm like, okay, but they're
Yeah,
like, now
exactly.
the
Who cares?
president is going to know that people don't
Yeah.
like it. I'm like, I think he
He
knows. I
knows.
think
He knows.
they
He
already
knows.
know what's
Yeah.
the, it's like showing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just I think it's good and getting people activated is good, but
Right.
I don't know I don't know how
Yeah.
useful that sort of.
If instead those used, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've done some research for this episode, and so I'm more convinced for sure that vote, strike, boycott, and actually some ethical sabotage. Well, at least the suffragettes did some ethical sabotage. There's not a lot of ethical sabotage that I found in, like, for example, Iceland's women getting full equity. There's not really sabotage. It's mostly just labor strikes and boycotts and stuff.
They're all Vikings
Um,
anyway. They're just like
they're
we
Vikings, yeah,
we have
yeah,
axes. We're just gonna grab our axes. They're
horns,
already
yeah.
here.
But so I don't know about ethical sabotage, but yeah, but in terms of I mean, I can't critique them because I haven't done the research. But yeah, to me, it seems like a big protest on a Sunday, right? Not even a work day where you would have a walkout to do the
Right.
protest, but on a Sunday where everyone's already off work, it really that's going to have almost no effect. Whereas if you said, here's 15 companies that are publicly traded that sell things to normal consumers that are all their CEOs have not condemned Trump. Uh, stop by, like boycott them all. Here's the alternatives for each one. Give them an
Yeah.
alternative where the CEO has
Yeah.
condemned Trump. For example, just that would be massive. Like, you think CVS's CEO has condemned Trump? No. Like,
Nope.
well, just get all those old folks who are in the No Kings rally to stop getting their prescriptions filled in CVS or whatever. I mean, probably both Walgreens,
A
CVS, neither the
unified
same.
movement like
But actually
that
start
has an
boycotting.
economic result. Yeah.
Yes. And then
That's what
it would
will
have
make
an
people
immediate effect.
take
I think
notice.
that would be much stronger.
Oh yeah.
But I can't speak to that. I think the main thing for this episode is just it'd be great if the women's rights movement would really take all those leaders. There are these brilliant women who are educated, connected, wealthy, ready to go, or not just wealthy, but have resources to run this movement. I think if they start using and ally themselves with labor. I mean, they should go and call up major labor unions and be like, we're forming an alliance. Like, we want to be a part, like, we want to be, we can't be in your labor union necessarily, but we want to be advocating
We're
alongside
tied to
you
your
for labor. And they don't do it. They don't do it. Those
we have the same
conversations don't
struggle.
happen.
Let's
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
allies, I guess.
Other countries and the American history shows that when feminists ally themselves with labor and then move forward towards the goals of labor and the goals of feminism that overlap,
Yeah.
maternal pay, time off, and you know um child care and all the thing, equal pay
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
women. Labor loves that shit. They love that. They love that. They want to fight for equal pay for half their members. Of course they want that, right? So if they can work together like that, that's what a history and in other countries has actually yielded the actual advancement of women's liberation into full equity. And if you don't do that, it just you can show up and you can keep protesting and petitioning, which are the old way, And you can even try to do a little voting, although I haven't really seen even much voting working.
Yeah.
You can basically keep protesting and promoting, and it just won't work because protest and promote and petitioning only worked for the first three. Now you
Now
have
we
to go
need
further.
striking involved. We
Yeah.
need to get the
Yeah.
money, to
And to
get the
some extent
purse strings.
and even the labor movement stuff actually started before the voting and helped it. It wasn't, I don't think you could say it was like the thing. I think petitioning and protesting was really the strongest, part of that struggle. At least from the two history books that I read. I mean, there are other people who know a lot more than this than I do, but I read the main up to date histories of this, and but there was labor stuff before that, and women were joining labor unions, and the labor
Mhm.
unions were advocating for them, but it was anyways. So I don't want to say that the labor part had nothing to do with getting the voting. It did, but then you really have to ratchet up that labor
To get those
defense.
phase
Yeah,
4 and 5.
yeah. The
What?
real tragedy here is with calling Bernie supporters Bernie bros, right?
Yeah,
Right, and
that's
actually
sort of
driving a wedge. And Elizabeth Warren saying that Bernie was sort of misogynistic and said no, a woman couldn't be president or whatever.
I don't Bernie bro
Which I
wasn't
think
a compliment, right? It was always
no,
meant
no,
to
it was
be
an
sort of
attack.
an
It was
attack.
to
Yeah.
say that he's like a misogynist. He attracts misogynists. That was the attack, and it was Hillary who invented that attack because obviously she was trying to beat him. But it drove this deep wedge in between labor, which is like Bernie, leftist labor focused politicians,
Mhm.
and that movement with the new left and women, identitarian, sort of more mango, sort of identitarian left women
Ah,
movement stuff. But now that's starting to forge back together with the Justice Democrats. So, like AOC is the perfect example. She's a total feminist and which is
right.
great, women's liberation.
But also
But she's
very
also like,
pro
the labor is
labor.
awesome. Like, we have
Yeah.
to fight for tenants' rights and labor unions. And she doesn't really come out and say, let's do strikes and boycotts. But maybe that's not for her to do as a politician. It really should be these, the organizations, I
Grassroots.
think, outside
Sure.
that should do it. And then the politicians should sort of react to that rather than be like the leaders of it. But she's an example where you're like bringing back. So I think it's not there yet because we haven't really seen strike, boycott,
Mhm.
hardcore voting, electoral like advancement of women. But at least you're seeing AOC as an example of bringing those movements back together again, which Hillary rendered apart in this
Mm.
horrible way, and Warren almost in a way continued that rent,
I do
which is
remember lots of
terrible.
infighting. Yeah, that was
Yeah, that was
that was
rough.
kicking up. Well, what
Yeah.
about the usually a dirty word is lobbyist, but what if is like for voting, getting voting, that seems to be how you get people's ears now. Is that I mean, it seems insulting to treat women as a special interest group, but is that a viable way to maybe get some movement on things? What do you
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should you shouldn't tie any hands behind your back, The
Mhm.
histories that I read were, the history up until now, and a lot of the labor actions that got women full equity, feminist and women and labor actions that got women full equity in like Norway and Holland and Iceland and stuff. Those were in like the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and those are countries where like Citizens United was not, they can't do lobbying like you can in America.
Right, right.
So that might be a lever that didn't come up in the history because it's so recent, and it's only America.
So you're saying
But go
removing
for it. I'm
Citizens
like,
United would be a good like
well, I'm just saying with Citizens United, women could raise money and spend unlimited funds on elections to support people who supported women's rights. Whether that's, I mean, I'm not saying, so that's just money is money. It can be paid for anything,
it's
good or
true.
bad.
But then that
I mean,
means
you can
people
get
could
rid of it.
raise
I
money
think it's
against
probably
that.
good to get rid of it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of Citizens United, but whether it's a thing that will definitely work, to bring about full equity and equal rights for women. Again, the history could not say because it's never been. The history hasn't been written yet, right? We've only had intense lobbying like this for like 30 or 40 years, and
Yeah.
that's when the in the meantime, the other countries that have succeeded at this have used labor, not lobbying, to do that.
Okay,
So
so what are
go
the
for it,
other
but I don't think
what
it'll
are
work
the
as well as labor stuff.
okay? You said there are some that have already got all five the aspects you think strong. Where are those again at?
Yeah, so the best places are the Scandinavian countries,
Okay.
basically the countries with the most advanced
They
labor movements.
they seem to have the best quality of life things nailed down across the
They
board,
do.
right? I
They
mean,
do.
it's not this
Denmark,
doesn't
Iceland,
surprise.
Norway, Sweden, Finland have the best women's rights, high gender equality, political participation, and safety. They're just safer. They have the best maternal health. They have the best legal protections. And Denmark and Iceland especially is usually considered sort of the top. Iceland is sort of amazing. And Iceland actually has a famous um they have a famous strike that they did. So, and this is part of the reason why Iceland has the best women's rights. So, in October 24th of 1975,
Okay.
90% of Icelandic women went on strike. So they
Ooh.
all walked off the job. All 90% of women.
Yeah.
And they were protesting gender inequality by refusing both paid and unpaid labor, bringing the country to a standstill. The women even abandoned household chores. So the women refused to even do chores around the house.
Well,
90% of women. This is a pretty
well,
profound thing.
do you
This was
know? Does it
called
say what the effort was like?
this
What
was
they were
called the long this was called the
striking for?
long just gender inequality.
Okay.
It doesn't say the exact things here, but yeah. But then, so the Icelandic women, there were some threats to the Icelandic women's rights recently, and they wanted to kind of push things forward more. So they actually had another one. I think it was 2023, and it
They
looks
were
like
like, lest ye forget.
right. And in Poland in 2016, they held a Black Monday, which was modeled on the 1979 Icelandic strike. And there's another global international women's strike, which is a global vision inspired by the Icelandic strike that spread in 2017 and 2018, but then has not continued.
Hmm.
So, this idea of women not only walking off the job, but refusing to cook dinner and do dishes and do any chores and do anything
Right.
which is maybe
To
seems a little funny,
because there's
but
a lot of
that's pretty nice to dramatize
unpaid
it.
labor that goes
Yes,
on,
absolutely. I mean, obviously, you should take care of children, who are like crying in bed. That's pretty sad. Shouldn't hurt the children, but that's a pretty
But the point
powerful
is that
thing,
it's like that's a split responsibility. That's not just only
right?
the
And we have
moms.
like Women's History Month, and these kind of academic
Yeah.
mango sort of women's rights people are like Women's History Month. Well, we have International Women's Strike Day, and I don't hear anything about it. I don't hear
Yeah.
anything. Why aren't the Me Too Twitter people and the Women's History Month people, and why don't they? I mean, they can keep doing the Women's History Month. I don't mind all that's great. Women's History, great. With Me Too, great. But
Right.
add to that, okay, we're all going to walk off the job on this Monday. No one
Tie
do
it
any
to
work. Don't
tie
do
it
any
to action,
dishes.
whichever
Yeah,
way it is.
do
Yeah.
actual labor action and direct action, which
Right.
they don't do, and they do. So it's a bummer. It's a bummer.
Because people can ignore a celebration, and what you're
Right,
doing
right.
with
Or even a
striking
protest. You can just
or
ignore it.
yeah, you can just say,
Yeah,
okay, I'm not going to go there that time, but
right.
it's when it's an economic movement or something that's boycotting and striking that affects someone's purse strings. They know, the people who don't
Right,
want to notice are forced to notice sometimes.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know who does boycotts really well is the right wing. They do it really well. We don't realize that because we don't think the right wing is sort of boycotting because it seems like a sort of left wing thing to do. But actually, right wing people are really good at boycotting. One of the best examples recently was remember when there was a trans commercial, like a trans
Hmm.
actress was in a commercial for Budweiser.
Oh, right,
And
right.
then
Everyone,
all these guys protested by boycotting
yeah.
Budweiser. And Budweiser went from Anheuser-Busch, the makers of Budweiser, went from the number one beer company in the country to the second. They moved down from the first to the second beer company because of that boycott. And
I
do
think
you think
probably
any beer company or any other masculine coded company will ever put a trans actress ever again in a commercial?
Right.
No, because of a boycott, not because, the manosphere got mad on TikTok and posted tweets about how they don't like trans actresses, but
Because the
because they did a
dollars.
boycott.
Right.
Yeah, they forced that. And that's what the women should do, and that's what the left in general should do.
I was
But
going to
they
say, I
don't do it.
grew up in the church, in the church. I grew up as a religious person. That was a playbook that, they would talk and be like, hey, we don't
Oh,
like this company. Let's, there
boycott
was a
it.
famous boycotting
Yeah.
Disney thing in the 90s
Oh,
happened where people were like
yeah.
mad that they were having,
Did it push
like,
things, do you think? Did
I,
people see it push
I
things?
think it was mad about like, uh, a gay appreciation or gay pride days in the park or something.
Mm,
And I don't think it, culturally now in
didn't go too
2026,
far.
you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, you didn't shut that down. There's still gay people. It's
It's
okay.
still going.
Uh,
I th- I think maybe with Christians, Christians who are so extremely motivated by Christianity that they're willing to do a boycott is probably a minority of the country. I mean, it's probably a big minority, but it's a
yeah.
minority. Women and feminist women, like women who think, hey, women should have better, better pay, better equity, maternal pay, maternal time off.
Yeah.
That's a lot of women. Like that's not all the women. Maybe some women are. I don't know. I'm a trad wife. Although even trad wives should want paid maternal leave. Then
Right.
they can like be a trad wife and like hang out at home with the kids or whatever.
It's an
Um,
immediate issue for half of the population, and
right.
it's a non-zero issue for the other half of the population, for a
Absolutely.
giant chunk of them who
Absolutely.
are like,
If
yeah,
you
of course,
give
I don't have
maternal
to be a
pay,
woman to think this is a
right.
good
And
idea.
like, women, men, our fathers have wives. If the woman, well, really, we should have parental paid leave for both. But
Yes.
even if we were a little bit not perfect and we just gave women paid leave for 6 months or whatever, that would really be nice for the fathers too. Like, it's really nice for the whole household if
Yep.
one person can keep their job, get paid even 60% maybe of their salary for 6 months while taking care of the kid more or less full time, that's a huge benefit for the men too. Although we really should have both should be given months paid, at least 6 months each paid.
I think new parents should be given some sort of a blanket, like, uh, it's insanity pass, because if you do general crazy things in public, because like it's such a changing of your whole life. You're like, oh, we have to accommodate a new human who
Yeah.
does nothing for
Insanity pass
themselves.
and
and i
screams
and i
constantly,
and
right?
I didn't, I thought I knew, I read books and I thought I knew, but nope, turns out
No,
it's
no.
different than all of
She
the things.
loses it all the time.
So yeah, no.
Yeah, totally. I like
But
that insanity pass. You can just hold it up and be like, I haven't, no, no, no,
there's
leave him
a
alone. He has a newborn.
it's proof of a child under, yeah, like my brain is not yet combobulated correctly.
Right. Discombobulated. Well, anyways, that's the solution for today.
Okay.
I don't know. Have we covered it? Are we
I think
uh
the action, so it's a step about action that helps the women's movement. What's the action that gets us toward it, as I guess trying to get
I mean,
more people on
it just
board
has
for boycotts?
it has most to do with women because I don't not very many men are leaders in the women's movement, certainly not me. And so
Yeah.
it more has to do with women seeing that
So just
these labor actions and alignment with labor unions
yeah,
is not just like a preference thing. It's a critical strategic choice that has to be done
yeah,
if you want to move the women's movement forward. If you don't, or if you kind of don't care, if you just are going to keep being successful on Twitter, if you just keep being outraged about women being mistreated, and that's just your deal,
yeah.
well, first of all, then you're a jerk, right? Because you don't actually want the success, like the actual completion of the project.
Because on some
But if
level,
you
you're
are
like, I
actually
still need women to be mistreated so that I have
right,
content to
otherwise I'd have
continue
to
my
change my Twitter
course of
strategy or
action.
whatever, right? So if you're like that, then screw you. So we need people who are actually committed to really, which is most people. I mean, most people are, and
Yeah,
even people who even mangoes, I think are like, no, I really am committed. Well, then they need to. I think they need to look at the history, and they might come to a different conclusion than me. But to me, it's pretty obvious on
just to
its
lay it out
face.
like
Like
this is, yeah,
it's pretty straightforward, and I think rating countries pretty clearly and saying, look, America's at 3.7. It's not even at 4. And saying we're at 3.7, how do we get to 4? How do we get to 4.5? How do we get to 5? And
right.
then saying what strategies actually work. And it's clearly boycotting, striking, It's clearly boycotting, striking, and doing a more inclusive voting
Version of voting.
approach,
Yeah.
a more inclusive electoral strategy where you don't have feminists like Hillary Clinton and Warren throwing rocks at Bernie Sanders, who would have gotten maternal leave and childcare and Medicare for all, which massively helps out women and mothers to have Medicare for all. So
To look at
that
the
was
two
that
as,
was a huge mistake.
yeah, they're the same. They're chords on the same struggle, not like completely
Yeah.
separate things.
Yeah. And maybe we'll get the way to get a woman president is to maybe first have a Bernie Sanders president, like a president who, advances these allied,
The full
feminist
equity
and
state.
labor. Yeah. A labor president, I think, is a feminist president, even if he isn't outwardly feminist or, that is feminine. Like that is a support of
Yeah.
feminism is labor unions and labor stuff like this. So. But
Okay.
I think a strike would work really well. That's part of the reason we had the Union of Moms episode. People can go back and listen to one of the first episodes of this, which is not aged a day. You could go back and listen to that. It rings completely true today, which is women, our mothers and women who are going to be someday be mothers, can all join the Union of Moms and have strikes and boycotts and voting and membership, sort of a membership fee, which then creates like an organization around that.
In such a fractured like modern scape, like it's not everybody watching NBC, ABC, CBS anymore. Like how do you get everyone aligned for like a strike together?
Well,
Feels
that's
like
where
a
the
hard thing.
mangoes can do it. I mean, the mangoes are they've got the loudspeakers, right?
Yeah.
There are women and people on Twitter and on these things where if they send out a newsletter, 2 million, 500,000
Lots of
women
ears.
get the newsletter. They get the newsletter. And if they say, we're doing the strike big this year, we're doing the Women's International Strike huge, big time. And we're holding a rally together with these 4 labor unions. And we're going to get women in our membership into the unions that can. Like, hey, these are not unionized areas. We're going to unionize those areas through our women membership, right? So they need to pivot their strategies away from, well, we're going to try to create a trending hashtag, me too, some other trending hashtag, which doesn't really achieve anything, and switch to this more aggressive labor approach. And if they do, the history suggests, and the other countries suggest, it will work much better. It will succeed much faster. It still will take years probably, and it'll still be a struggle, and it'll take time and effort and work and hard, but it's pulling the right levers on the machine as opposed to sort of pulling all these levers and pressing all these buttons that don't actually affect the drive chain of the machine. Like it doesn't actually move the thing forward. You're just sort of pulling.
You feel like you're doing
levers.
something, but
yeah, you feel like, oh, we did this trending hashtag. Oh my God, we got so guys fired. We did this thing. But it's like, okay, at the end of the day,
root cause.
There's still no ERA. There's still no maternity leave, paid maternity leave. There's still no universal child care. There's still no equal pay, laws like. So
power through collective organization.
Yes.
I mean,
let's do it. And this is what would make, and what people should realize too, is this is what would make like MAGA and Republicans like shit a brick. Like this is the kind of thing where real power would start to move away from them and towards like actually making the country like better.
Right.
Yeah, the people. And so what you want to do is you want to do what will scare your enemies the most, right? And this is the kind of thing that scares their enemies the most, not another mango-led, outrage about some language pronouns or something like that. That's all mango stuff that the enemies like that because they just turn it around. They take the most extreme example and they say, look, the most extreme example is I can condemn that. And a lot of people in the middle of the country go, yeah, the most extreme example, that is kind of stupid. Like, whatever. Or I don't like that. That does sound kind of crazy. But if you say, hey, we're going to walk off the job. Why? Because we want women to be paid equally as men, or we want maternal paid leave. All the people in the middle of the country are going to be like, yeah, there's no extreme thing that you can pull out of that to then, So the people who are against this, mostly the right wing. Oh, there's some women who are right wing who want whatever more equality, but generally the right wing politicians, they don't have in their policies like, advance the liberation of women. Right. So they would really be shitting a brick if the women's movement actually took on these attributes, but they don't. and so it plays into their power, and that's why right wing people run the whole country, even though they're a minority of the country. They still run the whole country, and it's because their opponents don't use the right strategies to beat them.
Yeah. And
It's
they've
bad.
decided to put their differences aside and vote in the block together, like
Yeah. They say, well,
work
I'm
together.
Christian and you're a warmongering financier crypto bro, whatever. Well, let's vote
They'll be
together
both
on
one.
Donald
Yeah.
Trump. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So they can beat us, you know. Anyways, I
All
think it's
right.
a good I think it's good. I hope people do it because then, you know, hopefully do it in the next 18 years, and then my daughter can come of age where she has equal rights and, you know,
You got
full
a good chance.
equity.
I
And
think, the next
I
18
don't
years
think
are
so.
gonna, there's a lot of
I
change
think
that's
we're at
gonna
a
happen.
bad no, we're
We're
dead. I
only
think
spiral
America's
down.
done. We're done.
Oh no.
I think we're total. I've
See,
lost it.
here's the new
I've
parent
lost it.
insanity. You get to claim new parent insanity now.
I've I've completely lost it. I've
The
become
world
quite
is
pessimistic.
doomed.
I used to be very optimistic. Now I'm like, ooh, things are not going good. Yeah. I think what's happening is white people, white nationalists essentially, like fascist white nationalists who have always
Yeah.
been in charge of America. They were in charge using majoritarian strategies. And then basically when Obama became president, they all like woke up like this, like snap, their fingers woke up and realized that they were going to lose the majority of the country. And so since Obama, they've been very rapidly and very successfully adopting minoritarian strategies to dominate the country. So like if you look at, for example, like
How ironic,
Malaysia.
since they don't like minorities.
Yeah, but that's part of the thing that scares them is they know they're going to be a minority, and they've been mistreating minorities for hundreds of years. They know they're like, oh, we're going to be mistreated. So
Right.
they're basically moving from a majoritarian strategy to a minoritarian strategy, which is like, you know, limiting the right to vote and controlling, you know, tiny pathways of power, kind of bottlenecking power, and then taking control of those bottlenecks. Especially the right to vote, they're trying to limit that as much as possible. And so if you look, for example, at the way Chinese populations in like Malaysia or Indonesia, who are like small, they're like 10, 12% of the country, but they have this wildly outsized power in the country, is
Yeah.
because they use these minoritarian controls to take power. And actually most places in the world, it's a minority that controls the country, not a majority. America, for its whole history, has been a major exception that the majority actually dominated the country. The white Christians dominated the country. In the rest of the world, usually it's a minority that controls the country. And
Really?
so
I
now
guess I haven't thought of
America's
that.
just converting back into what the rest of the world usually is, where a minority dominates the country. And so that's what's happening. And it really was the Obama presidency made them all realize, wait, if they can get a black guy elected, then this whole party, white supremacist nationalist Christian party, is over. And we need to like lock it down. And so they've been doing that since then. And Trump is a sign of their success that they're able to do
The
it.
hard pendulum swing the other direction.
And I think this pendulum has rocket boosters on it. Like it's just going to go and break off and go off and keep going
Does
ever
it
to the right.
go? Do you think it ever swings back? I mean, that's what you like
Well,
about a
let me put it
pendulum,
this,
is
let me
that
put it
it
this way.
swings both
America has never
directions.
swung. America has never swung anywhere. It's always been a white nationalist Christian fascist
Yeah.
country. Always. It always has. Even under Obama, it's a white nationalist fascist Christian country. Under Obama was the largest transfer of wealth from black Americans to white Americans since slavery. And that was because the housing crisis vastly disproportionately affected people of color who lost
Yeah.
their homes. And he bailed out the banks, which were all white people, and the stock market, which is all white people and stock
The
market
people
and the
left holding
banks.
the bag
And
is
so the black people all lost, a bunch of black people lost their homes from the subprime mortgage, and a bunch of the stock market went through the roof, and the banks all, you know, golden parachutes and everything. So under the black president, we still had a total white nationalist Christian fascist outcome. And so, you know, there is no pendulum. You know, it's just a right wing country. You know, it's a Republican country. So we could change it, but it would take, I think this would be part of it, would be women saying we're going to use the power of labor. If they did that, some real power would start to shift, because that's the way to really get power, is to hit the pocketbook. And you couldn't do it temporarily. Just like Europe, just like all these countries, you have to keep doing it.
they have to
every
know that
few years.
that button still exists.
Yeah, you just
You
have
can
to
push
keep
it whenever they forget.
Right. Yeah, because guess what? Capital never stops, never sleeps. It's always trying to get as much as it can, and
Yeah.
and so you have to do it. But yeah, so I'm pretty, yeah. America is it never was like lost. It's never been like found and now we lost it. It's like no, it's just always been bad, and now that's it.
Me as a generally just a lazy person in general, I love the idea of a don't work button. I mean, I want to keep that
button.
I want to keep
As
that
many
button very,
not to mention
like
free health insurance,
active, working,
free
functional.
childcare. Free. I'd love those buttons to be hit too. Free healthcare, free. I should say tax funded healthcare, tax funded, childcare. It's not free, but tax. It's free at the point of use.
How about we work toward easing the anxieties of the population, and we look and we go, oh, what are the large and common anxieties? Oh, here's one. Let's ease it. And then after we've done that a number of times, we have a less anxious population, and it's better for everyone. God. What are you going to do?
Wouldn't that be crazy? A good country can't have that. Got to have everyone scared of their own shadows and scared of their neighbors and pissed off and scared.
I will be the optimistic one because I think
you get to
18 years. Your daughter has a chance at a better country than she is in now. It's possible. We can do it.
Oh my God. That would be great. We'll see. I mean, I think even to try to strengthen my pessimism, look at women's right to vote being denied after the Civil War. That's they still have, that's amazing. Crazy. That's an amazing, that was an amazing outcome that the women supported the anti-slavery movement for 3 decades. Well, they supported it forever, but they basically stopped fighting for women's rights and started fighting for against slavery in the 30s. And then in the 60s, they won, and then they got nothing.
It's like everyone on the outside of a siege, they're banging on the gates of this city. And then the gates come crashing down and everyone's like running in and they're like, no, hold on. Not you guys.
Yeah, not you guys.
Just some people. Everyone else, of the you guys stay outside.
And it wasn't like 5 years later or 10 years later they got it. It was 40 years later. Like it was 2 generations later of women with no right to vote. So we gotta
cool.
We gotta push harder here. You gotta push harder. All right. Well, we're done. This is good.
Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Like
Get out there and strike and boycott, everybody, men and women alike. Let's do this.
Join together, labor unions, women's unions.
Do it.
That's not
union moms. All right, everybody. See you next time.
See you next time.
Hey there, thanks for listening to that episode of Solutions from the Multiverse.
Yeah, we're back with a little after roll. Hello.
Hey, after roll. Roll that after roll. So basically, we want you to subscribe and rate and review and tell someone, like take your favorite solution and send it to someone who you think would like blow their mind to hear it.
Yeah, we love making the show. We're proud of it. And we're excited. We want other people to show. We know that the main way people find podcasts is word of mouth. I know that's true for me. I listen to my friends who also listen to podcasts tell me about ones, and I go, okay, I'm cluing into that. So we want to be part of that chain.
So thanks for being a part of Solutions.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again real soon.
Bye.
Bye.